in addition to their failed response, we also learned that literally on the day that Roe was being overturned, Biden was cutting a deal with Senator Mitch McConnell to install an anti-choice federal judge, which of course federal judgeships are for life. So this is a big deal, and it's in the state of Kentucky. Let's go ahead and put this next piece up on the screen here. So Democratic governor of Kentucky, Andy Beshear, after coming under pressure from the media to release these emails about this individual's last name's Meredith, who's being nominated for this federal judgeship, he actually released the private emails that went back and forth between his office and the White House, explaining that this dude, Chad Meredith, was going to be put up for this appointment. This is really, I know Andy Beshear, I met him, talked to him any number of times when I lived in Kentucky. It's a very small world for Democratic politics. First of all, regular Kentucky Democrats, party loyalists are furious about this. John Yarmouth, who's the only Democratic congressman who represents Louisville, he's actually retiring this year. He has been outspoken about how outraged he is. The few people that I reached out to, on the ground there, who are, again, like Democratic Party stalwarts, they cannot believe it, how outrageous this is, especially coming at this point in time. And Chad Meredith is like, he's like sort of a well-known political operative. He was in the Matt Bevin administration, so he's a very partisan guy, somebody who's well-known to the politicos in the state. But to have Andy Beshear, who again is, his dad was governor, Democratic governor as well, total party loyalist, normal mainstream Democratic dude, to have him release these confidential emails from the White House, that's also a pretty extraordinary move.
Yeah, and I think what they were pointing to is that the press in Kentucky was like, are you sure that the White House said that they were going to do this? And he's like, yeah, I am sure. Here's the plan. And he literally released his own emails with the president. Think about how extraordinary that is. A normie Democratic governor, in a red state, so I guess he has some incentive to buck the administration, but very much been kind of a friend of the Bidens. And then to just release the email like that, I just think it's stunning. I mean, to see, I can't even think of a parallel where there's such a lock on party loyalty for state governors like that to just turn against Biden. And I think it's a growing trend. Gavin Newsom clearly is also smelling blood, and he's trying to position himself as the anti-Ron DeSantis 2024 pick. I don't think that's going to happen. But the fact that he feels, he's like, hey, you know what? Biden's a disaster. I won recall election. Maybe I should be the one who takes the mantle. I think that really does show you that the people out in the states who can just feel how terrible Biden is and how unpopular he is in their states, they don't feel like they need to fall in line. And, I think their constituents will probably reward them for that. That's the biggest problem for Biden.
Yeah, well, that's very true. That is very true. I think I saw a headline, Tim Ryan, who's running for Senate in Ohio, was like, not going to appear with Biden in his state. I mean, these are the sort of things that hasn't happened really up till now. Because even though Biden has not been a popular president for, the last year, he hasn't had this sort of like radioactive quality to him where rural or moderate or swing state Dems feel like, I got to keep my distance. That's changing, and it's changing pretty quickly. Another sign of decline in the White House is one of his top aides who was there with him throughout the campaign, Kate Bedingfield, who is White House communications director. She is going to be leaving the White House later this month. I think we have this that we can put up on the screen. The tweet here says, news, White House communications director Kate Bedingfield, a trusted Biden aide since his time as Obama's vice president, will be departing the White House later this month, per White House officials. Now, of course, they'll say, oh, she's really tired, or family, or whatever excuse they're going to make. But when you start seeing high-level people like this who've been there for years saying, I'm done, that's a sign of a real problem. It's something we tracked with Kamala Harris's office, of course, closely as well. And going back to that initial CNN piece that we were looking at, they actually have a quote in there. They say, several officials say Biden's tendency to berate advisors when he's displeased with how a situation is being handled or when events go off poorly has trickled down the ranks in the West Wing, leaving several mid-level aides feeling blamed for failings despite lacking any real ability to influence the building's decision-making. That has contributed to some of the recent staff departures, according to people familiar. So, Biden's management style, as I've discussed before, is he is kind of a micromanager, but he's also incapable of making a decision.
Yeah.
And you see that now playing out in his inability to just move forward on some things and ideas that have been floating in the ether now for months and months. A classic example of this is the student loan debt thing. How many weeks ago did we hear, oh, he's thinking about doing it, maybe it's gonna be 10,000, maybe it's gonna be means tested, it's coming anytime, he's gonna make a decision anytime. Here we are, still no decision on something he could have literally done on day one on his own, doesn't need Congress, doesn't need Manchin, parliamentarian, none of that. So even though, like you said, of course, not every problem is because of him, but a lot of it does come back to his management style, his inability to make decisions, his inability to delegate, and the fact that that really hangs up the White House response on literally everything. And then we're seeing from quotes from within the room that his response to this frustration that is caused by his own failings is then to yell at and berate his advisors.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, when you put it that way and you just really consider how much these people are turning against him, that we're seeing at the state level and more, I just think that it just shows you that he's in real trouble. He's exactly in Jimmy Carter territory. It's exactly at these times when Ted Kennedy and others decided to run against him. It's also at this time when Reagan and his advisors, this is quaint, but at the time they're like, could a 60-something-year-old person really get elected? Like, he seems so old. And Reagan was like, nah, man, I could beat this guy. And he was pointing to Jimmy Carter. So, yeah, I kind of wish for the days where 68 seemed too old to be president, but that's where we are. So he finds himself in the exact same political conditions, and that just causes a tremendous amount of chaos in the country. And, it's bad for the country to have somebody that lacks so little confidence in their own party and in the people at the highest level of the office.
It's bad for the country when we have so many crises that need to be dealt with, and he's unable to, galvanize any sort of response to any of it. So yeah, it's a sad state of affairs. And then the last piece of this is you were alluding to the fact that, not only do you have Andy Beshear bucking him in the state of Kentucky, you've got Gavin Newsom kind of testing the waters out in California. Very bold when you have an incumbent president, and clearly he feels he's not going to pay any price for pretty actively floating his own 2024 considerations, even as Biden has been totally clear, I'm running again. The other person who's starting to get attention is Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, who's, billionaire dude. Yes. No one would expect him to be the sort of like Democratic savior. And it's a sign of how low the bar is, honestly, that he's having such a moment. Because it's like, he hasn't done anything extraordinary. It's just he campaigned on a few things and then actually did them. And people are like, oh my God, this dude is incredible. So put this Washington Post piece up on the screen, which talks about exactly this dynamic. They say, as some Democrats grow impatient with Biden, alternative voices emerge. And they lay out this contrast with J.B. Pritzker. So when Biden heard about the Highland Park killings that we're gonna talk about next, all he said at this Independence Day barbecue was he got up and sort of mumbled in his typical way, you all heard what happened today. Things will get better still, but not without more hard work together. That's it, okay? He then later got up and gave a little bit more fulsome remarks. But in contrast to that, J.B. Pritzker is the governor of the state where this all happened, immediately came out with a much more sort of clear and forceful response. Again, it's not like Pritzker's response was anything mind-blowing. It just showed a little bit of energy and a little bit of emotion in response to what is an obviously gut-wrenching, horrific tragedy. Let's take a listen to what Pritzker had to say.
If you're angry today, I'm here to tell you, be angry. I'm furious. I'm furious that yet more innocent lives were taken by gun violence. I'm furious that their loved ones are forever broken by what took place today. I'm furious that children and their families have been traumatized. I'm furious that this is happening in communities all across Illinois and America. I'm furious because it does not have to be this way. And yet we as a nation, we continue to allow this to happen. While we celebrate the 4th of July just once a year, mass shootings have become our weekly American tradition.
And I think what Pritzker
You
shows
just speak
too.
a sentence. You know what I mean?
Right, I know.
You were telling me, and I was like, "That's it." You know, that's why people like this guy.
And I think that
Yeah.
right, it is a sign of how people are just desperate for it. He at least has his finger on the pulse of how the Democratic base is kind of feeling. So channeling that emotion. But I actually think that that is noteworthy that, you know, it's not even that he called for specific policies and had this whole agenda lay, okay, here's what we're going to do, X, Y, and Z. It was just that he had a forceful response that was clear in the moment, that included emotion that a lot of people were feeling. Like, people aren't asking for Biden to be a magician or a rocket scientist or any of that. They just want to feel like he's at least engaged and at least trying. And you're really getting none of that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can't even. Like I said, I watched it and I was like, really? That's it? But look, when the bar is this low, I guess I get it. It reminds me of the Cuomo love, you know, during the middle of the pandemic, where literally all he did was seem semi-competent, even though he was killing old people with his nursing home policies and then bailing them out with some nursing home liability shield. But people thought, hey, at least he can speak.
So
you know?
Pritzker did do one thing that's
what is it?
You're gonna kind of appreciate this.
Okay.
So he cut the gas tax and also I think like the grocery tax in the state.
Good. Oh, well, the grocery tax is
And
good. Yeah.
he mandated that gas stations and grocery stores put up a sign telling people that they are benefiting from this tax cut.
I love that.
Yeah.
Good.
All right. So
I support that.
this is someone who understands
It's like
politics.
when Trump signed the stimulus checks. I was like, hey, that's a good idea.
Oh my God, a Democrat who actually like understands politics. So anyway, that's the Pritzker flirtation. Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.